I'd like you to join me on a journey back to when everything was open. When that openness, that wilderness represented an existential threat, but your response to it defined your character. If you're old enough, you'll remember when the internet was a place like this. When people first encountered this openness, they had to roll up their sleeves and build. They had to homestead. They had to mix a little part of themselves with the dirt and turn it into something valuable. The pioneers on the internet did the same things. In their garages and basements, these hackers built little, brittle bulletin boards built on spare parts and soldered servers. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you it was a utopia. It didn't last for a reason. For all of us to get on the internet, it had to be simplified, centralized, and your voice and the voices of countless of others were commodified. I'd like you to join me on a journey. It was a mere 175 years ago people made their way over these ridges and through these canyons in search of something better. Whereas the pioneers on the internet did much of what they did in my lifetime. Most of what you think is new, awe-inspiring, or disruptive had its foundations set in the early 80s. Today we get to stand on the shoulders of these giants, repackage what they left us, and build an internet where deplatforming becomes a thing of the past. I'd like you to join me on a journey. Like the physical spaces we inhabit, the internet seems to have been enclosed around us. I encourage you to read the works of Donna Brown in her book, Back to the Land. She describes a time when people vacillated back and forth between rural areas, small towns, wild lands and farms, to tall, bleak cities, suffocating and crowded. In it, she writes, American decentralists of the 1930s envisioned a world in which everyone had access to productive property, to the tools and materials that would allow them to feed, clothe, and shelter themselves. Like the old producerist radicals of the turn of the century, they viewed themselves as the defenders of small-scale, independent proprietors against their chief enemy, monopoly capitalism, which gave vast economic power to a small oligarchy, dispossessed ordinary people, and corrupted democracy at its core. Our common ground is a belief that monopoly capitalism is evil and destructive, they said. Many observers must have perceived this perspective as oddly anachronistic in these years of titanic struggle between communism, fascism, and capitalism. As they saw it, the most powerful enemy of the American dream was not a foreign ideology, not Reds infiltrating the president's cabinet, or brown shirts marching in the streets, but the homegrown friends of big business who dishonored the dream of fairness by saying that it had been realized today. From the standpoint of decentralists, neither fascism nor communism was truly opposed to capitalism. Both were logically results of the constant evolution of industrial capitalism toward a greater concentration of power and resources at the top. Socialism, in their view, simply shifted the monopoly power of private oligarchies to the state without weakening that power or distributing it more fairly. A clever phrase used by an anarchist website in 2009 sums up the decentralist position in the 1930s. They were free market anti-capitalists. The decentralists of the 1930s have sometimes been referred to as conservatives. A number of them have even used the word to describe themselves. Over time, however, the word conservative has taken on certain associations that do not fit. Decentralists were indeed critical of the growth of government bureaucracy and regulation, and they did fear the New Deal's centripetal force. They deplored the forces that were compelling people to decide fewer and fewer things for themselves, and instead obey orders from distant and absentee authorities. It would be cliché if it weren't so true. To notice the patterns repeating in our current cycle of human history. You've probably heard the refrain, get out, get out, get out of the cities. If you think of the internet as the real estate of our collective minds and disparate opinions or perspectives, then the question I'm asking you is, do you feel that pressing need to get out of their digital systems? Whether you are ready to admit it or not, you've probably felt the suffocating process of enclosure. Long gone are the vassal lords. No. The serfs on the neo-feudal digital control grid live on platforms, other people's property, where you are forced to dance to the capricious tune of poorly defined community guidelines, suffer under arbitrarily enforced edicts, and risk your livelihood to a mob. This digital control grid, innocuously named the cloud, is just a platform. Where we're going, there are no platforms. Just protocols, tested by BitTorrent, perfected by Bitcoin, and brought to you by Back to the LAN. If you're ready to roll up your sleeves and join an enriched tradition of pioneers striving for the enduring dream of self-sufficiency, go to backtotheland.org, where we'll guide you on a journey as you take this dream digital.